meeting to order. Please stand as those beside me. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's my duty to announce that we had an executive session prior to this meeting to discuss personnel and legal issues. We have a roll call, Mr. Prohaski.
Mrs. Kozer? Mr. Laser?
Here.
Mr. Ocasio?
Here.
Mrs. Main?
Here.
Mr. Music?
Here.
Mr. Alberto?
Here.
Mr. Palmer?
Here.
Dr. George? And Mr. Hauser?
Here. At this time, I'd like to open the floor to hearing of visitors, part 1. This is where anyone may address the board at the podium. Just simply state your name and your address. You can comment on anything that's on the agenda this evening. Seeing no one, I move for adoption of resolution number 182, approval of minutes.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor and second. Questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes. Solicitors report, Mr. Nagel.
No report.
Thank you. Education and Planning, Mrs. Maines.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to introduce Mr. Matt Shivitz and Mrs. Lindsay DeCasolo. They're going to do a report on the junior high school.
Good evening. Thank you for having us tonight to share with you a little bit about the junior high school. If you remember, Mrs. DeCasolo, the assistant principal at the junior high, and myself were here 9 months ago, and we were here alongside of our senior high school colleagues, and we were standing in front of you and we were talking about a schedule change within the secondary schools. We talked about specifically at the junior high school where we wanted to go with our schedule. And if you remember, just to refresh you, and I'll do that tonight a little bit, we introduced something called teaming in the junior high school as well as Wildcat time. And so we're really excited tonight to be back and take a little bit of time, and I promised a lot of people here I'd be quick, and just share with you how that's been going this year, how some of our successes, some of our areas that we want to improve on, and just kind of give you a feel about how the junior high has operated. So I'm joined here tonight by Mrs. DeCasolo and also Mr. Fenton, who is an 8th grade English teacher. He is fresh off the diamond. He was doing a Lathrop jock game, pumping it, and he ran in tonight to be here with us. So going ahead here, here's a picture. This was a mantra that we took on at the junior high school. We actually have this vase right over here. It's in our team room. Every single day our teachers have common planning. And what that means is every day they congregate together in the team room, and we have a very scripted list of tasks that they complete every single day. But we started off by asking the question, why are we going to do this? And so what this symbolized, this vase, was a representative. Every one of our teachers in the junior high wrote a child on a slip of paper that meant a great deal to them. In that vase, you'll see Mason and Maddie Shivitz. You'll see Reese DeCasolo. I'm sure you'll see Emily and Corey Fenton in here. And what we did is we chose papers from everybody on staff, and we held it over the vase and we dropped them into the vase. Now some things naturally fell into the vase, but some went out of the vase. And we asked our teachers to visualize, what if this was your child that you cared about, that they slipped through the cracks? And maybe that happens in education, maybe because of different learning techniques. Maybe a kid can't get a ride in the morning for tutoring that we provide on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Maybe it happens because a student has anxiety and is shy and doesn't want to go ask their math teacher for additional help. It could be a whole list of things. And our mission at the junior high was we need to get everybody in this base. We need to stop that from happening because we were seeing that in our test scores. We were seeing that with the kids that were coming through, that we were working so hard, but we felt like we were missing students, and we recognized that. And we also took this mantra, this was from the United States Coast Guard, called "It's not our fault, but it's our problem." And what that meant for us was the Coast Guard would say that if there was a ship who didn't heed the weather advice and was stranded, it might not be their fault that that ship went out there and didn't heed the advice, but it's their problem. It's their job to do that. And we said that as teachers. It might not be our fault that these students are coming with all different things, with different learning abilities, with attendance problems, with what they go home to at night, but it sure as heck is our problem to make sure that they get in the base. So last year, what we set out, and this is the 2017-18 school year, last year, our mission was high levels of learning for all. We wanted to make sure that we reached every single student. And so how did we do that? We had an emphasis on remediation in the classroom. We brought in small tables in each classroom. We've asked our students or our teachers to differentiate instruction, call kids over who were struggling in class, and make sure that we have time where we're just focused on them, that they have multiple activities going on. We asked our teachers to collaborate, to have common assessments, meaning the 3 English 8 teachers are all doing the same assessment. They're comparing their scores and they're improving with each other. How did you get your students to score at that level? What did you do? How can we collaborate? We had morning tutoring, but again, I mentioned that was up in the air if students could get a ride. And at the junior high, that's not always happening. They're not driving at that age. We, Mrs. DeCastle and I led professional development throughout the school year. We had monthly faculty meetings. They were 25 minutes, and we had little snippets of things that we were doing. We knew we wanted to improve math and ELA scores, and we had a focus on our writing prompts as well as our open-ended prompts in math. And the last thing we wanted was student ownership of learning and school culture. One thing we rolled out last year, if you remember, we took all of the 8th grade students to Kennywood. We did that sort of as an incentive for the work that they put in last year. And how did that pay off? We did pretty well. If you look at, I think I jumped ahead, this is how we are measured now by the state. ESSA, Every Student Succeeds Act, and you can see on the side, we're going to focus tonight on the state assessment measures as we usually do, but we are well ahead in college and career readiness in our attendance, but you can see our state assessment measures. And as I go forward, we had a lot to celebrate from last year. Our ELA went up 6 percentiles in 7th grade language arts. It went up in math in 7th grade, and I'll get there in a second. It went up substantially in 8th grade. English language arts, mathematics went up in 8th grade, and science went up. So we celebrated this because we went up in every single area with our students. You can see that compared with the state average, if you're looking at our English language arts on the left, 79% were proficient or advanced. The statewide average was 63%. And you can see the 2030 goal for that. You can see mathematics. You can see that statewide average in mathematics, and we were at 50%. And then science and biology were combined there, 72%, and you can see the statewide average as well. You saw in the previous slide where we came from the year before. And so obviously we had phenomenal growth scores, especially in English. We had a 14% increase in English, and it really paid dividends on our score. We had a 100% PVOS score. That's growth, how kids obviously grew their scores from one grade level to the next. And you can see did well in academic growth score in math as well as science. And all of this led to a big celebration for us last year, that the previous year, 2016, 2017, we were at 58.7 was our overall school rating at the junior high. And it doesn't take much to see that last year, over 20%, or 20 points we grew. 81.8 was our overall school ranking. That is hiding it. But that 58.7 out of 25 middle schools in Westmoreland County, 58.7 was 15th. We are It's hiding it with the bar. We are third in Westmoreland County with that score out of 25 middle schools from last year. So we were very excited about that moving forward. So I'm showing you that tonight because it was a year to build on, but we started a lot of things last year with differentiated instruction, with having an ownership on getting everybody in the base, and making sure that we reached out to students as much as we could. But then we came together in the fall and we said, how can we make this better? How can we make your lives easier as teachers? How can we reach more students so that students aren't outside of the base? And so what we came up with, we went on several school visits, if you remember, to Lower Merion in Philadelphia, to Upper St. Clair, to South Portland. It was doing a different model that we wanted to look at, and we wanted teacher collaboration during the school day. We wanted time during the day where our teachers could meet every single day to discuss kids' needs, and to be able to pull kids based on that discussion. We wanted more time with math and ELA. We did that this year. Which we're going to show you later. We've extended math to 60 minutes a day, English to 60 minutes a day. All of our other courses are the standard 41 minutes during the school day. We eliminated study halls. We had random study halls throughout the school day, and we were finding that kids weren't having access to their teachers, if you remember us talking about that. Teachers were in other classes, were teaching, or they had a study hall. Now, every 7th grade teacher is off with every 7th grade kid, and vice versa with 8th grade. They can now pull those students at any time, and we'll show you how we pull those students in a second. I've mentioned and I touched on the Wildcat time to replace study halls, the extension in math and English, and also the common planning for all core teachers. Mrs. DeCastro is going to talk about what we do in common planning this year that's different than what we did last year, and you're going to hopefully see why we were able to improve and how hopefully this will pay dividends in the future. Mrs. DeCastro.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to just jump ahead one slide. We all know that the best way to increase the capacity of our organization is to increase the capacity of the people in it. So we really wanted to put our investment into our teachers and help our teachers. Everybody's working hard all the time. We know that, but are we doing the right work? Are we working hard in the right ways? And that led us to the professional learning community model. And this model was really developed for that, to streamline the process of improving educational instruction and learning in schools. And we're going to talk about what that process is. But we were lucky enough to get a grant from the Greater Latrobe Partners in Education Foundation to support an online, a 3-day on-site training from Solution Tree. And Solution Tree is probably the leading company out there promoting and educating in the area of professional learning communities. We brought Greg Lean in, and he worked with our staff 3 full days throughout this school year, one at the beginning of the year, one in November, and one in January. We were also lucky enough administratively to train in this model, and it, I believe, is going to pay huge dividends for us moving forward. When you take a look at the professional learning community model, it has 3 big ideas, and those 3 big ideas are focus on learning. And I'm going to tell you, for a lot of educational institutions, the focus is on teaching and not necessarily on learning. And so this is a transition for us, and it's a tough transition. There are a lot of folks that are saying, "I'm so sweet, I taught it, they should have learned it." And I understand that, I get that. But we're in a shift now where we have to say, wait, we taught it and they didn't learn it. What do we have to do? Okay? We have to answer that question through collaboration. So the second big idea of a professional learning community is creating a collaborative culture, really promoting teamwork. And within that team, focusing on results. Okay? Using data to determine whether these kids are learning, and if they're not learning, what are we going to do about it? So the professional learning community has 4 guiding questions. Number 1, what do we want students to know and be able to do? Number 2, how are we going to know that they learned it? Number 3, how are we going to know if they haven't learned it, or what are we going to do if they haven't learned it? And number 4, if they already know it, how are we going to extend their learning? So that's the guiding practice that the junior high teachers are using to improve the instruction all over the building. Okay, those 4 questions. This is what the 4 questions look like in practice. First question, what do we want students to know and be able to do? Starting off the school year, our teachers sat down we have a common planning room. Mr. Shivitz calls it the green eggs and ham room because it's got a green wall and an orange wall. I enjoy the walls, but all of our teachers meet in that room for common planning, and they meet together with their teams. So we have Math 7 meeting, we have World Culture 7 meeting, we have English 7 teachers meeting together, and they spend a planning period every single day of the week sitting down and determining exactly what they want students to know and be able to do. And you know, that question could be answered rather simply by saying, well, it's the standards. We want the kids to know the standards. But the standards document is a huge document with hundreds and hundreds of standards. To cover all of those at a very, very deep level is pretty much impossible in one school year. So what the teachers have to do is they have to come up with 8 to 10 essential skills each semester that they want to ensure that every single kid in the 7th grade and every single kid in the 8th grade leave that grade and that class with. They'll still teach all the standards, but these are the most important things that these kids really need in order to move forward to the next grade. So that's part of the process, figuring out what is really, really, really important in that document. Obviously, all of our essential skills are standards-based, but then the next part is saying, okay, so we know what our essential skills are, how are we going to assess these essential skills? So they'll work together in groups, just like you see up there, to develop common formative assessments, which leads us to our next question. How do we determine if students learned an essential skill? We use that common formative assessment. As part of this process, when the teachers start a unit, they actually decide on a day where they will give that common assessment. They schedule that day, and that day doesn't change. Everybody gives the common assessment on the same day. And then they actually sit down and they grade it together. Those are things that have never happened in the past because common planning hasn't occurred. Okay, there wasn't a structure in place to help support that. So they can go through, if they have short answers, if they have essays, and they can work through different answers and determine iterator reliability. Are we all grading this the same? Are we all accepting the same type of answers as correct or incorrect? And then the next part is a data analysis piece. And what they're doing, and what you see up here in the pictures, are the communication pieces that go back to the students in terms of essential skills. The students get to see, they know what the essential skills are. The teachers are talking about them, okay? But then when they take their essential skills common formative assessment, they'll get their results. And you can see the bullseye. Let me see if I have do I have a laser pointer on this? This bullseye right here. This bullseye is used in a math classroom. And as kids progress with the essential skill, they move closer to the bullseye. So you can see it's kind of similar to our base. In this particular bullseye, we have about 6 kids that haven't mastered that essential skill. All right? They know which arrow is theirs, nobody else does. But they also know where they're at in their path. Other teachers are using thermometers to measure that. Okay? But on the flip side, the teachers are doing their own data analysis as well. And this is probably the most important part in my mind of the whole PLC process, the data analysis that the teachers do with their own data. Teachers sit down and they score all of their tests and then they input their scores. And what they're doing is saying, oh my goodness, I thought I had about 80 or 90% of the kids that got this. In reality, I only had about 60% of kids that really mastered this essential skill. Another teacher, teacher 2, had about 55% that mastered the skill. Teacher 3 had 67% of their kids proficient in that essential skill. So that's some interesting data to look at in and of itself. Lots of conversations can happen there. Why did this teacher have 67 and these 2 teachers, why were they in the 50s? All right, I don't know, let's find out, let's have that discussion. However, that also gives them a basis for developing a remediation list. The kids that aren't proficient the first time around, that doesn't mean they're not going to be proficient. That just means they need a little extra assistance. And that's where the remediation that occurs during Wildcat time comes into play. And you can see that after one remediation, look at the improvement in scores for teacher one, from about 60% to 88%, about 55% to 95% proficient after just one Wildcat time remediation. These kids were retested. Over here, 67% to 87%.
And it's not saying that we weren't doing that in the past, but we're concentrated on it now because we have the time to do it in our school day. So what I'm saying is, teachers have an extremely difficult job. They're covering so many standards, they're plowing through. And actually sit and take time and to say, hey, these are the things that they have to cover leading this unit, that it's non-negotiable. They can't move on without knowing this skill in geography, this skill in science. And we slow down and we check the kids. Our kids know this. Our kids know when they're taking an essential skills test because they're going to be remediated for that test. You should see the effort and the ability for them to really go to it. And you'll see how we pull them here in a second.
And one thing that I was lucky enough to sit in on this particular data meeting, when teachers are ready for a data meeting, they schedule those with us. And the discussion in this data meeting was, well, that's great. We went from 60% in the 60s to in the 80s and 90s, but we still have some stuff to talk about. We have 2 teachers that got their kids to about an 87, 88 proficiency rating, and we have 1 teacher that got to 95%. What happened in this classroom, in this remediation, because quite honestly, this teacher was the lowest to begin with. What happened here? What was the procedure that took place that created that kind of effect for those kids learning? And instantly, all of the teachers said, flat out, that teacher did a different activity. These 2 did the same activity, that teacher did a different activity. So what did we do? We wrote it down and we made it part of the curriculum next year. All 3 teachers will be teaching the activity that helped this teacher get those students to 95% proficiency. And again, those are discussions that were really challenging to have before we had this kind of time built into our school day and this kind of structure in place to support this data analysis. So this might be one of my favorite data discussions because there was so much to be learned in just one common assessment. Okay, so next question, the third question, what are we going to do if students struggle learning the material? We already know what we want them to learn. We already know how we're going to determine if they learned it or not. But what are we going to do if they don't learn it? And that's where our Wildcat time and our remediation come into play. What we have done in the junior highs, like Mr. Shivett said, we have Wildcat time in the middle of the day. And we have every single 7th grade teacher available during that time. And we also have all 7th grade students available at that time. So every student can access any teacher that they need to access. In order to structure that, we had to build a schedule. Each student has, or each teacher has what they call a win day. And that's the day where they win any student that they want. If they have students that need remediation, that teacher from that subject matter gets to lock them into what we call Flex Time Manager, which is the image you see up there. And that student has to then report to that teacher to get some remediation. Each teacher also has a scheduled workroom day. So remediation and workroom are 2 different things. Remediation remediation is really for kids that are struggling with a concept. Workroom is for kids that maybe missed a day, didn't do their homework, and they just need to come in and get some work done, or they want to work in that teacher's classroom in case they have questions on their homework or anything like that. But every teacher has an assigned win day and assigned workroom day. And you can see on this particular teacher's schedule, English is win day, remediation day is on Tuesday. This teacher actually has workroom day. She's scheduled it every single day of the week. Some days she only has 5 students in there, but she's scheduled it every day of the week so kids can access her every single day.
This is a student view just to expand on what Mrs. DeCasolo said. So every day, our students are responsible to log into this system. And it's really a neat thing to think about 13 and 14-year-olds logging into this system, and they have to pick and they have to be responsible for it. So every day, here's a student, an actual student that we copied here. On Monday, that student was pulled for world cultures remediation. They didn't pass their essential skills test to proficiency. They needed to go in. On Tuesday, they were pulled for English remediation. On Wednesday, they were pulled for math remediation. This happens sometimes with students who are struggling in multiple subjects. Sometimes, and we tell students that. It's not a bad thing to be pulled for remediation. We have students, actually, it's been probably my favorite part, that students can request a teacher to add them to their remediation. And I told students that. We met with all of them, and I said I would have been pulled for math remediation through my entire high school career. It just would have happened. And it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing that I would have said to that teacher, can I please come to you because we have a test today, I need help. And that would have kept my parents off my back, that would have kept a lot of different things working much better at home. And we have kids that are doing that at 13 and 14 years old. They're requesting from teachers, can you please add me to your remediation class? This student had open time on Thursday. They chose to go out, and our other students who don't have a win day are offering activities. And we're proud of that. They were playing flag football on the field. We have yoga going on at any given time. We have some relaxing things. It could be board games. It could be STEM activities. In the library, we have kids who are really, they just enjoy the wood shop, and they're in there and they're making Mother's Day presents. And so they're just getting a little bit of extra time during that middle of the day. But as Mrs. DeCasolo said, when those teachers have a win day, they trump everything. It doesn't matter if I signed up to go to a wood shop. If it's a math day and that math teacher picked me, it trumps everything. Our kids know they have to be there, or it's a class cut. I mean, it's their responsibility. So this was just a big piece I wanted to show everyone. Our kids are doing a great job in the responsibility piece to go. This says catch home right here. If a kid doesn't sign up for, or doesn't sign up for anything, they go to this room called catch home. And surprisingly, we've got it down to a science now that we have less than 10 kids in there every day. Every kid signed up, with really over 600 7th and 8th graders sign up every day. It's been a really good accomplishment for us. Here's another student view just to show you. This kid had, he selected a book study that he wanted to just go sign up a book in the library and sign up for. He was pulled for English on Tuesday. He was pulled for Mrs. Gaffney on Wednesday. He wanted to go to the Random Acts of Kindness Club on Thursday. That's another thing. Kids are making cards for loved ones. We're doing something nice for somebody in the school, whether it's baking cookies for their favorite teacher and delivering it to them. Just really neat things that we didn't have the opportunity to do in the past. They were pulled by Mr. Smith on Friday. So the PLC process, we brought obviously Mr. Fenton, Mr. Fenton was on that 8th grade English team that, if you remember our 4th slide, the biggest improvement in school was our 8th grade English team. They jumped over 14% in 1 year in ELA. They've done a heck of a lot of work. But we brought Mr. Fenton tonight to talk about what do you believe are, from your perspective, the wins this year and the things that we've accomplished.
Okay, thanks, Matt. First of all, in the English department, one of the biggest wins is we're now getting extra time. Okay, the other classes are 41 minutes. We're getting an hour, which is great because we are able to teach our lesson. Then we're able to either start our homework or start our classwork, get through it. The students, they're having trouble. It's not like now they go home, oh, I didn't know how to do this at home. Now they can ask in that extra 20 minutes. It's phenomenal, the amount of work that you can get done getting the extra time in an hour. Also, the English teachers can control the students that aren't getting it. Every Tuesday we have remediation. And whatever the English department says goes. If this kid wants to do anything, no, English has full control, and we can pull the kids that aren't getting it. And we can see, because our common assessments, we have the scores, we see who's not making it. And what we do is we either reteach the lesson, we either do individualized instruction for the kids until they get it. You know, it used to be in years past, you could say, hey, Tommy, I need you for tutoring. Well, I can't get to school, I can't get a ride, or whatever, and you were done. Okay? Now, you have them every Tuesday if you want them. And you have a list. And until those kids make the essential skill, you can get them. And I tell all of them, if you want to be with me every Tuesday, that's your choice. Okay? And what they do is they work hard, because they'd rather play wiffle ball than write an introductory paragraph. Okay? So that really helps. Also, with Wildcat Time, we control it, and we know who is struggling, who is not, and we know who to pick up and who to get the work to. And then finally, we have our own planning. In English, with the extra 20 minutes, we're doing a lot more writing. And it's great that we have our own planning period to check the essays and get more time. Now we have common planning to talk to the teachers, and we have our own planning to get our work done, such as correcting essays. But to be honest with you, when this was first kicked off, some of the teachers down at the junior high were a little upset, but I said, hey, come on now. But Matt and Lindsay have been phenomenal. Everybody's working together, and it is working. Believe me, it is working, and we're happy that we can get all those kids, and we need to get them all in the jar.
That's exactly what I told you to say. Thanks a lot.
So an hour later.
So we just want to show some pictures, obviously just to show you some of the things the kids are doing, the fun things that they're doing during Wildcat Time when they're not bored. There's a STEM activity in one room. A bit about
one of our teachers is a baker and decorates cookies, and she was teaching kids how to decorate cookies. These are all kids that aren't pulled for remediation on those particular days, and they're making choice to go to fun activities that are happening during that day.
But again, there's not one student in the junior high that we kind of took that, I don't know, the stigma away of being pulled for remediation. There's not one student, they get to do fun things every week, but there's not one student that hasn't been pulled for remediation at one time or another. It just happens. And it's just become a culture within the junior high.
And speaking to that, we didn't really answer that fourth question about what do we do if the kids already learned it. Sometimes kids are pulled for remediation for enrichment versus remediation. Some of our teachers, we have 3 Math 7 teachers, and sometimes they pull all of their kids. And they pull high-level kids, and one of those 3 teachers does an enrichment activity. One of them works with kind of the kids in the middle area, and one of them works with kids that need the actual remediation. So there's some enrichment pieces that are going on during the Wildcat Time as well.
So another activity, our librarian's doing a great job during that time, as are our PE teachers I mentioned. They have activities, wiffle ball games, all kinds of things our librarian has. If you go into our library during Wildcat Time, there's 4 or 5 different stations of activities and building different projects that kids, again, are signing up to do because they like it. And it's just something to do because they had a break in their day and they weren't pulled for remediation. Furthermore, that we're using
the 3D pens, and the kids are able, there's I think 6 or 7 of them, they just sign up for one of those slots and they're able to use the 3D pens to make things for all of Wildcat Time.
These are just our kids, it's just a fun picture. This is just junior life in the junior high every day.
Advanced. This particular picture, during Wildcat Time, if any of you are familiar with Bagley Elementary's badminton tournament, it is the big thing. It is the big thing of Bagley, the phys ed department. And this year they organized the winners of the badminton tournament to actually come up to the junior high from Bagley during our Wildcat Time. And our teams, our 7th and 8th grade badminton teams, kind of round robin with Bagley's winners of their badminton teams. And and my son's actually in that picture, and it was like the best day of his life. I get to go to the junior high and play badminton with the 7th and 8th graders. Really big deal.
So again, it was a fun thing that we weren't able to do in the past because they're off. Moving forward, just some more pictures of kids during Wildcat Time. Our last slide was areas looking to improve upon. We want to continue to enhance our professional learning community. This is more than just just some time during the day where they're playing games, and we wanted to offer that, things in school. But we also, this is based on data, this is based on remediation needs, this is based on what I started the meeting on. Every kid gets in the base. We determine what they have to know, what they cannot leave us without knowing, and we pull them, and that's all part of what we do in common planning. What are we going to do if students already know or have learned it? What we need to improve on is increase the number of enrichment activities. In the first year, we've really focused on remediating students who aren't getting it, who aren't in the base, but we do need to compile more of those. That's been an improvement need and a goal of ours moving into our second year of this. And we have all of our core teachers who have common planning this year. That's English, math, science, social studies. Our unified arts teachers, world language, and singletons, as we call them, meaning teachers who don't have a partner, maybe like our intro to manufacturing teacher. We want to give them common planning as well. It wasn't able to work out in the schedule this year. We've already worked it in. The majority of those teachers all are going to have common planning for next school year, and they have win days as well to pull kids when they're not receiving their win days. So that's it. We just wanted to share a little bit of life in the junior high and what we're doing this year. So if you have any questions for us, but thank you for having us, and thank you for the support, especially the Partners in Education Foundation. They funded a great deal of professional development for us this year. It was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to tell you guys, I'm sorry I interrupted on this loss. We'll let them fight for it. Anyway, you guys are doing a great job. I just feel the enthusiasm of you guys. And I see the smiles on the faces of these kids. You can't imagine how much education has changed for the positive. Make sure you tell all the teachers how good the job. Thank you very much. Sorry to interrupt you.
Okay, I would like to bundle two resolutions for number 183, 184, and 185. They're all agreements that we do. Number 183 is to approve an affiliation agreement between Chatham University School of Education and River School District. Number 184 is to approve the WIU Transperfect Translation Services, which is a memorandum of understanding. And 185 is to approve Westmoreland County Student Assistance Program Agreement for the 2019-20 school year. And so I will move for adoption of those three resolutions.
Second. Wait a second. Second. A motion on the floor and a second. Questions or comments on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes.
I also move then for the adoption of resolution number 186 to approve the proposed 2019-2020 school calendar.
A motion on the floor and second. Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes.
And resolution number 187 to approve a tuition student from Ligonier Valley as listed on your agenda.
Second.
A motion on the floor and second. Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes.
And we had a curriculum committee meeting this evening at 5:30 p.m. here in the CSC. And the next curriculum committee meeting will be June 18th.
Thank you,
So,
Ms. Williams.
thank you.
Finance, I'd like to bundle resolution number 188 and 189. It's the treasurer's report, payment of bills, and move for adoption of those bills.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor and second. Questions or comments on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes. I move for adoption of resolution number 190 to approve Eastern Regional Consortium lease of fiber optic network contract.
Second.
A We have a motion on the floor and second. Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes. Also move for adoption of resolution number 191 to approve gifts, grants, and donations as listed.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor and second. Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes. Finance Committee meetings from Tuesday, March 12th are attached. Our next Finance Committee meeting will be Tuesday, April 9th, 5:30 p.m. at the Senior High School Library. Facilities Operation and Planning, our next Facilities Operation and Planning Committee meeting will be April 4th at 3:30 at the Administration Building. Student Activities and Recreation, Mrs. Maines.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Mears has provided a list of the senior nights for all the spring sports. If you're interested, please take a look at that. And Mr. Mears, there's some confusion about the athletic committee meeting. 3 o'clock?
Yeah.
It is 3 o'clock to
Yes.
whatever time, noon, I guess?
Probably 4 to 4:30.
Okay, so that is on Wednesday, that's actually tomorrow, Wednesday, March the 20th at 3 p.m. in the senior high school conference room.
Thank you, Mrs. Maines. Community Relations, Dr. George.
We have a annual report for the Parks and Rec. And the next meeting is March 21st, 23rd, Municipal Building, 4:30 p.m. So,
Thank you, Dr. George. Westmoreland Intermediate Unit, Mrs. Maines.
Thank you. I move for adoption of resolution number 192 to approve the Westmoreland Intermediate Unit General Operating Budget.
We have a motion on the floor and second. Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye. Oh, it needs a roll call.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, we'll have to call roll call. That was my bad. Sorry. Yes.
Mr. Laser.
Yes.
Mr. LaCasio.
Yes.
Mrs. Maines.
Yes.
Mr. Music.
Yes.
Mr. O'Gara.
Yes.
Mr. Palmer.
yes.
Dr. George.
Yes.
Mr. Howard.
Yes.
And the next wrong one. Next WIU committee meeting will be Tuesday, March 26th. That's next Tuesday at 7 p.m. in the Fort Meeting Room.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Maines. EWCTC Joint Operating Committee, Mr. Music.
Thank you. The next EWCTC Joint Operating Committee meeting will be Wednesday, March 27th, and that'll be at 7 p.m. at the EWCTC building.
Thank you, Mr. Music. Board Policy Liaison, Mrs. Maines.
I'll move for adoption resolution number 193. Notice of intent to adopt board policies as they are listed.
We have a motion on the floor and second. Questions or comments on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes. Technology, Mr. Palmer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me report, however, our next meeting will be here on Tuesday, April 16th at 6 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you. Superintendent's recommendations, Mrs. Slattery.
I'd ask the board to move on resolution number 194, which is the approval of the resignations listed.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor and second. Questions or comments on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes.
I'd ask the board to move on resolution number 195, which is the additional of Nancy Burford as a substitute teacher.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion on the floor and second. Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes.
I'd ask the board to move on resolution number 196, which is the approval of the support personnel classified appointments.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor and second. Questions or comments on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes.
And I'd ask the board to move on resolution number 197, which is the approval of a school psychology intern for the 1920 school year.
So moved.
Second.
We We have a motion on the floor and second. Questions or comments on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes.
And I'd ask the board to move on resolution number 198, which is the approval of the resignation of the superintendent, Judy Swigert, for retirement as of July 31st, 2019.
It's a hard one, Judy.
It's okay. I appreciate that.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor and second. Reluctantly. All, any questions or comments? All in favor?
I just want to say something. I appreciate all that Judy's done for our district. We hate to lose you. I was glad to be part of the board when you came here. And that's the only reason I seconded and accepted your resignation. But we're all proud of you. Thank you very much. We appreciate all.
I say too, you've been a great leader for all these years. We'll certainly miss you. I think you'll stay around the area.
I was going to say, I'm here till July 31st. I'm going anywhere. But thank you very much.
Thank you very much for all your.
I appreciate it, and I appreciate all of the support. Thank you very much.
Me three, I guess.
Thank you, Adam.
Pretty much cover all the bases. That's good. Not yet. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes.
We have a whole lot of things going on in the district, and I'll just note that the Pennsylvania Music Educators Association Regional Choral Concert, this is another one, not the one from last week, is this Friday in our senior high school auditorium at 7 p.m. And just a few other things that I mentioned, this is National Honor Society induction is next Thursday, not this Thursday. And the musical, the junior high school musical is coming up, Seussical Junior. Will be the weekend of April 12th, 13th, and 14th, just a few items. And of course, our Breakfast of Champions from March is actually the same day as the Honor Society induction. And our board meetings in April are the 9th and the 16th. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Snyder. This time, I'd like to open the floor up to hearing of visitors part 2. This is where you may address the board at the podium, stating your name and address, and may speak of any concerns you may have with the district.
Can I say something?
You certainly can. You have to go to the podium.
5 minutes. I just want to make a couple comments about Judy's retirement. You know that life goes on facing retirement too. You know, the thing that is always striking to me is that life goes on. Even though you were loved and did a great job, whatever you did, life keeps moving on whether you're there or not. I realize that every day when I'm on that emergency room, that they don't give a damn if I'm there. All you can hope for is that when you were there, that people remember you for what you did. Because that is your legacy. What did you do to impact people's lives? Did you do anything to make people feel good about you or what you did? And I think that says more than anything else as far as what you did do in your time that you served others. And Judy, I must tell you that you've served us very well. You've made us proud of our community and our school. You've done a fantastic job, and I'm grateful for what you've done for our school district. And that is your legacy. You're going to have a great time with retirement. I'm so jealous. I can't wait to join you, but God bless you, and thank you so very much for your service to us.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else? I think tonight's presentation, as Mr. Shivitz presented us with an increase in our students' performance. Although we have a lot of things that we've done on this board, and that's what we're here for, basically, as our students. And to see what the leadership in this school district has done is amazing. And I think Judy should be applauded for that. I think she is by far a phenomenal superintendent. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Seeing no one, I move for adoption of resolution number 1909, adjournment.
Second.
A motion on the floor, second. All in favor? Opposed?